You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 6, Episode 232.
Marfa Lights, Unpopular Paranormal Opinions, and Vote for Us.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. If this is your very first time listening, we welcome you here. And if you have been hanging out with us from the start or jumped in sooner than later, we do appreciate it.
Yep.
We're glad to have you. And I just realized how low my microphone is. I'm like leaning into it.
Okay.
You know, like when people eat. You ever watch people eat? Some people bring a fork to their face. Some people bring their face to the fork. Mm-hmm. Which one is right?
The one I do.
Which is?
Bring my face to the fork.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a question. That's a question that we all have, right? Yeah, nobody's got that question. Probably do right now, but... All right, so anyway, this is the CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we talk about stuff that we find to be interesting. Typically things that we find on the internet when we're not traveling, or things that when we travel, if we find to be interesting, we talk about it, right? It's primarily paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And by paranormal, I don't just mean like ghosts.
Yeah, cryptid, supernatural, just weird stuff, science, UFOs, etc., etc.
Etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, this is probably going to be our last podcast of the year.
What? Okay.
Of the year. I mean, 2021 is like getting ready to wrap up here pretty soon, isn't it?
We might do one more.
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing a whole lot of like, yeah, we're going to need you to work late. No. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Mm-hmm. You'll know if there's another episode available. It's pretty much how it works. And so with the podcast, you can find our episodes everywhere that you can listen to a podcast. If you're a youngster, you're probably like Spotify. If you're anybody else, you probably like Google or Apple or SoundCloud or iHeartRadio. Right? Mm-hmm. And we're there.
Yeah.
We're on all of them, so you can kind of check it out. So there you go. Just kind of give you an idea what's up. But we do have to ask you for a favor.
Oh, okay. We would like you to vote for us at Paranormality's Favorite Podcast of the Month contest. We've provided a link in the show notes to this podcast episode. Just click on that link and go ahead and fill it out. Put CreepGeeks Podcast. Let them know that you appreciate your hosts, Greg and Omi, and we might just show up as the favorite podcast of the month.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is possible. And you can vote 3 times.
Huh.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So vote early, vote often.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of feel like, public radio and public television when they're like, it's that time of year.
Yeah.
And then Wikipedia does it too.
Oh,
you get on Wikipedia, they're like, don't scroll past, please donate $2 or whatever it is. Keep Wikipedia alive.
They put that red bar across now.
Yeah.
And it scrolls with you. So you're trying to like...
It's like in your face. They're like, hey, man, are you enjoying yourself?
And I'm like, no, man. I'm trying to find the name of an actor that's only been in 2 movies since like the 90s. That's what I'm trying to do.
They're like, we can help you faster if you just go ahead and give us some money. So, and I actually tried to give them some money.
Yeah.
But it became so difficult to actually do that I just gave up and moved on. Mm-hmm. Because we have really low bandwidth where we are, and basically in Western North Carolina, as we broadcast from our underground bunker, right?
Yeah.
That it was basically causing me problems, and I just, out of frustration, just kind of rage quit the entire thing. So, yeah. Okay, so our last podcast, we've talked about a couple different things, but we've been alluding to the fact that we went to Marfa, Texas to see the Marfa Lights on our paranormal/spooky road trip, right, for spooky season.
Yeah.
And if you've been listening and paying attention to us in the past 4 or 5 episodes, we've been dragging this out. It's really what it boils down to. And we had a couple episodes where we didn't really talk about the Marfa Lights, but this episode we're going to talk about the Marfa Lights and some of the unpopular paranormal opinions that I may or may not have, because I can't claim them all, but it's pretty much me.
Okay.
I don't think Omi has the same opinions for most of these. This is one of those sort of midnight things that you think about. I don't want to say like shower thoughts like Reddit does, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do. So we'll talk about that. So, if you're familiar with the Brown Mountain Lights that are in western North Carolina, which is just a stone's throw from where we are, it's this weird phenomenon that occurs where people see these lights.
Yeah.
Kind of bouncing around the sky, doing all this weird sort of things, and they typically show up across the Blue Ridge, or, the mountains and the ridges, right? The Blue Ridge Parkway and all that stuff is where we kind of go see them from.
Yeah.
In North Carolina. And what they are is up for debate. Some people say it's like energy just discharge, like sort of a photovoltaic sort of thing that happens from pressure with quartz and all this crazy stuff. Some people say that, it's the spirits looking for other spirits that have been lost, like sort of. So anyway, there's a lot of sort of history. UFOs, that's one theory that's out there.
Yeah.
Plasma balls, peak energy, mountain discharge, all this crazy stuff, right? Everything that sort of goes from the scientific to the fantastical to the paranormal to,
St. Elmo's fire.
Yeah, St. Elmo's fire. And if you start looking for spook lights and spirit lights and ghost lights, as a lot of them are referred to, even though they're all kind of different if you really start digging into it, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
We found like 220 something listings of these different lights that you could go see.
Yeah, we even tried to hit one up in Arkansas to no avail.
Yeah,
so,
and so it's kind of like buyer beware when it comes to finding this stuff off the internet if you're looking, because sometimes that's the only place that you can really find them.
Yeah.
It's like listings for ghost lights and things. But one of the ones that's pretty big and has been talked about as far as spook lights go or spirit lights is Marfa.
Yeah.
Because that's the one I know. I know Brown Mountain Lights because I think that's more popular probably than the Marfa lights. Mm-hmm. And the other one is Marfa. The Marfa lights that are in Marfa, Texas, that people see repeatedly. And I've seen it on TV and stuff. And when we were taking our spooky trip, it's like, I want to go and see the Marfa lights.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else we were going was great. But I wanted to go see Marfa lights, and I was going to put my foot down. If you were like, well, can we do something else? I'd say no.
But there was also something else out there that I had wanted to see. So,
and to be honest, that's a big part of the reason why we went, but it wouldn't have been the deal breaker. If you were like, well, there's nothing here, I'd have been like, well, you're just going to have to suck it up. Because that's like the one thing I really wanted to do was to go see the Marfa lights. And primarily because it looked like it was a really easy place to get to that had some sort of guaranteed success.
And easy to get to is a relative term. I mean, when we were driving towards this particular area, after we've already gone through everything that we've gone through on our paranormal road trip, like delays, weird traffic, bad weather, stuff like that, we were driving for a while through southern and western Texas just to get here.
But what I mean by easy to get to is that you could park and hang out and see it. It wasn't like, okay, now that you've driven up a mountain, let's go ahead and park and hike down and go through cliffs. And, it was easy. It was more user accessible.
Okay.
I mean, but you're going to drive, though, for sure.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where it's like, okay, from here to the lights is 75 miles. Do you have enough gas to go the 75 miles? Because a lot of people will look at their gas gauge and go, yeah, we can make it.
What's new?
But I always look at it and go, if we get lost and have to do a 20-mile detour, will we be able to make it in and out? So,
What is it near? Is it Big Bend kind of near, or did we drive past that?
We've driven past that multiple times,
Okay.
and I'm not exactly sure. I know, once you leave Marfa, Texas, the closest thing would be to kind of cruise through. Is it San Antonio before you get to Las Cruces?
Austin.
No, it's definitely not Austin.
Yeah.
But you know why? Because Austin would be a lot nicer looking than, to be honest, right? I'm pretty sure it's San Antonio.
Well, we went through Alpine, and it's weird. Once you hit a certain part of Texas, then there's nothing for a long time except for tiny little towns.
We went through Odessa and Midland and stuff like that. So,
and then we hit like some place called Alpine, another place called Valentine.
Yeah.
Right outside Marfa, there's a tiny place like Fort Davis or something like that. You know? So, but it's out there. So what you don't have to do in like rugged terrain and four-wheeling and all that other stuff. You make up for it by driving a long distance into Texas to see these ghost lights.
Yeah.
But you show up at a very pretty place. I kind of fell in love with
Yeah,
Marfa.
I mean, it was like, okay, is that the viewing area? And it looked like, I don't know, some kind of like picnic area / museum / welcome center. I'm like, this is, I mean.
It reminded me of an art gallery in like
exactly.
northern New Mexico.
It was like,
yeah.
And this becomes clear a little bit later, right? But so we pull into this place. It's got the Southwestern design. It looks really nice. It's very artistic in its design and execution.
Yeah.
And it is the most, I think, architecturally pleasing paranormal place we've ever been to.
Yeah.
I mean, they had different colors. Like at night, the lights go to red so that you can see. It was well thought out. It was like, it was beautifully executed. And I was like, holy crap. If I was going to build a house and do something artsy with it, I would do that. I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked every bit of it. I liked the design. The pergola style. I don't know anything about all that stuff. So
It was pergola
style, to kind of keep the sun off of you. It was really nice. It was sort of a semicircle design, and it had, it was pleasing. And it kind of reminded me of the golden ratio. If you looked at it from the top, if you flew a drone up, you would see the golden ratio, which I meant to do, but I didn't do because I forgot.
It was so nicely planned that the windows that are cut in the viewing area, they're open. They're open windows. It's just cut into the wall. They serve a purpose of both being seating at night so you can sit down while you watch the Marfa lights, as well as being long enough to provide light and warm up the building that the rest area is.
Yeah, it was pretty nice, and also the way it worked out is if you were scrolling by, if you were cruising by in a wheelchair and you stopped and looked through one of those openings, you could see.
Yeah.
So it was well thought out. It was well designed. It wasn't like just some ramshackle shed in the middle of nowhere or just a random pull off with 5 trash cans, right?
As we plan an investigation towards a little ramshackle place next year.
Exactly. It was a really nice place. It was well maintained and it had nice parking and, you're off the road, because this is on the way into Marfa, the town. Before you get into Marfa, the town is the Marfa Lights viewing area, right? Mm-hmm. And so we took some pictures and did all that stuff. So when we got into the viewing area, we actually stopped because we thought it was going to be through the town, past to the other side, but it wasn't.
It was right there.
So we kind of I pretty much locked the brakes up in the van, thinking I didn't realize that we were going like 85 and a 55 or something like that because we were just trying to just moving on. Because I was talking to Omi and I said, wow, I don't think I've ever seen this many Mercedes G-Wagons. And, Mercedes G-Wagon kind of looks like an old school Suzuki Samurai, but it's a lot more expensive and a lot nicer. Mm-hmm. And after I counted like 5, no, it wasn't Mercedes G-Wagons. It was like I counted 3 to 4 Mercedes G-Wagons, but the rest was Porsche Cayennes.
Yeah.
Like 8 Porsche Cayennes, different colors and flavors and stuff.
Not only are we speeding in a small town in Texas, we're speeding in a small, rich town in Texas.
Yeah, because if you add up the cost of all those vehicles that had passed us, I'm like, that's like got to be close to $1 million worth of vehicles. I mean, if a Mercedes G-Wagon is $120,000 and the Porsche Cayennes run around 60 to 80, mm-hmm. It was a lot. I mean, maybe not $1 million, but I was like, wow, this is crazy. So we stopped at the area and we kind of looked during the daytime, and you see this amazing viewing area structure, right? And you're like, wow, this is great. And then you look and you're just looking over shrub brush and desert and crap until you get to the mountain range, which is
very far away.
At least 15 miles away.
Yeah.
And so you're looking over garbage. It basically is nothing. It's just dirt. I'm like, wow, I didn't know what I was expecting.
Yeah. And see, I
actually expected it to be closer. I expected the mountain range to be a lot closer. And it's way out there.
That's my problem. I was honestly, I think it's 10 to 11 miles maybe.
Well, okay. When you're sitting there viewing, but 10 to 11 to 15 miles doesn't matter. It's, you're not getting there in 2 minutes.
And I'm making that estimation because of like everything I've read about ghost lights in particular and being able to see them and stuff like that. Plus the information about the railroad, which is kind of near the area. So there is a railroad that goes past the area on the southern end of the area.
Yeah.
But there is a distinction between the Marfa lights and anything that might be on the rail line.
Yeah. So the lights that you look at, you're not looking at railway traffic, and you're not looking at cars. You're not looking at that sort of thing.
Unlike the Brown Mountain lights, where it seems like you could go down into the Linville Gorge, or you could go into the mountains and reach out and touch one because you might be a really good hiker or outdoors person. The Marfa lights are so far away that's like you're only a spectator, in my opinion. So,
well,
yeah.
And I didn't do much research for the Marfa lights because, to be 100% honest, I didn't want to be disappointed. So if I had no expectation, then I wouldn't be disappointed, because there's a lot of sites that you want to go see that may or may not be paranormal or whatever, just in general, right?
Yeah.
That you can get hyped up on, and then when you show up, you're like, wow, this is awful. You know what I mean? But in this particular case, I'm already like, man, the viewing area, this is great. That's a plus. Yeah. So we left the viewing area because we didn't stay very long because it was daylight, and there's nothing to see during the daylight with the exception of the viewing area. And we're like, okay, let's go find us a place to stay, and be able to come back to see the viewing, the Marfa lights at the viewing area. So we knew that was the goal, was to go into town, find a place to stay, and then come back later on when it got dark, because that's the reason why we're there. But what we didn't realize, though, when we got into Marfa, that this is one of those small little artist communities where artists have moved in and sort of claimed it and sort of made it artsy, right?
Yeah.
And that's where all these expensive cars were coming from. Because after doing a little bit of research, we realized that Marfa was pretty much put on the map by a famous minimalist artist who moved out of New York and moved to Marfa, Texas to do the art thing. And a bunch of artists showed up over time and turned this into an art town.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. What artist was it? No.
I don't know. I just remember famous New York minimalist artists. And so, with that being said, and the artists that moved in over time and the way the roots were put down in that particular area, you've got a mix of locals and artists that sort of moved. And over time, it turned this conglomerate sort of art town.
Yeah.
And there's random art structures and installations put all over the place in and around Marfa.
1970s minimalist artist Donald Judd moved to a dusty town in West Texas where he created giant works of art that bask beneath vast desert skies.
Yeah.
In the years since, Marfa has emerged as a mecca for art tourism. So,
and it's worth going to see.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
we drove past art that we were just like, wow.
Yeah.
And it did harken back to like when we first moved to New Mexico, and we did an art tour. We drove around with Dave and we went to the origami garden, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see.
That was actually a pretty cool trip, too, because
Yeah.
once we started talking to the guy and he realized we weren't just some random weirdos and knew a little bit about photography, he's like, come on back to the studio, guys.
Yeah.
We hung out with the artist for a while.
Where he was
as he's creating
sculpting-
these big origami things.
Yeah, sculpting these origami metal structures on top of like raw turquoise. And
Yeah.
I'm talking chunks of turquoise.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but in Marfa, you'll drive past something and you'll be like, oh, it's a classic car meetup. No, it's an art installation.
Yeah. So it was, and they had this really exclusive place called Dollar General where we actually went to get some supplies, because there really was not a whole lot of thing in Marfa. A whole lot of things in Marfa. I mean, there were some gas stations and stuff because, I was a little bit worried about getting fuel
Yeah.
to get out of there, because it was such a sort of a long, uneventful trip to get in there. It was like 75 miles of cruising past, like, things like farms and stuff.
Yeah.
Not farms, but like oil. Well, anyway, so we went to a little place, and I don't remember what it was called, that little campground that we stayed at, a little RV park.
The Tumble Inn RV Park. It is adorable, y'all. Look it up on Instagram. Look it up on Google. It's an adorable little place. It's very rustic.
It's dingy, so you have to like dinge to appreciate.
I mean, if you are looking for like the simple necessities for, an RV park, a hot shower, sometimes too hot, sometimes just right, a kitchen, and a place where your RV spot is far enough away from other people for a reasonable price, I recommend this place.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, if you're pulling like an 80-foot, if you're looking for a really expensive RV park with spa treatment, you're not going to get it. If you want to pull off the dusty road, wash some clothes, sleep, and do all that stuff, and only have spent like $18. This is the way to go. And it was clean, and it was, nice enough, and it was like being in the desert in Texas. So it's kind of like, what did you expect? But the hidden surprise for us was they had these big, looked like rusty tubes, like pipes. Big, we're talking
Pylons?
Big round pipes. They were like 4 feet in diameter pipes, like 4 of them. And when I first looked at it, actually more than that, like 4 or 5 of them. There was a bunch. Anyway, when I looked at them, I thought they were to keep maybe cars or trucks from running off the road and running into the campground if you got out of control or something. But they were art installations, and at night,
10.
Yeah, and at night they lit up.
They stand in a semicircle that apparently coincides with some sort of constellation a little bit. I don't know. It's like some sort of thing,
that was some of the problems that I had. Is like you'd see an art installation and had really no idea what it was all about.
Yeah, it lines up with something, either like the projection of or path of the moon or some sort of like aerial thing. But they stand up really tall, and during the day, you see these white petroglyph type designs. And then as the sun sets...
Like Coco Pelli, there was a couple.
As the sun sets, they change to a tone, and then once it hits like official sunset, that's when they become rainbow.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah, they're pretty spiffy.
I took some pictures. Those can be seen in our Instagram feed as well as mine. But they're...
Yeah, so if you go on Instagram and you look for CreepGeeks or,
Yeah.
Then you can...
I'll post another follow-up picture, but they're really cool. And it was just... my thing about Tumblein RV Park and those little art pieces is I was standing right there, and you could almost see... You could see the Marfa Light Mountains.
Yeah.
So we could have just stayed at the park. Maybe. But
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, sure, yeah, we could have.
Yeah.
But the Marfa Lights viewing area was free.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to not go. And it was nice. And it wasn't like you're standing in a dirt parking lot. And they had a little picnic table, area. They had this weird... so they have it to where you can see the viewing area, right, from the road, and you go off and you pull into the parking lot. But you could actually go into the dirt and set up a telescope and things like that. So they thought about it, and it was done to where if you wanted to go to one of these little spots and set up your own little telescope and be away from people and all that sort of thing, you could.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool, and there were some people doing that because that was the thing. Once we got settled in at the little, what was it called, Tumblein?
Yeah.
Once we got settled in, oh, yeah, when you go to check into the Tumblein, the little office is a canned ham trailer.
Yeah.
Like a little motorhome, a little pull-behind travel trailer type thing. They call it a canned ham because of its shape, and it's
adorable.
That's the office. So.
Yeah.
So we did all that stuff, and we actually went back to the viewing area at night, and we didn't think... I don't know what I was thinking.
We thought we'd be the only nerds there.
Yeah, evidently not. This is a popular thing. There's lots of nerds that show up, and they run out there, and they look, and they say, ooh, ah, and they jump back in their cars and take off.
Yeah.
Because we had pulled the van in, and we'd set some cameras up, and we turned all the stuff on to record in the van and realized that where we were in the parking lot and where the actual lights were going to show up, the van would do really no good.
Yeah.
Which is okay, because we really had no idea what to expect. And at the viewing area, they don't really give you a lot of information. It says who founded it, as far as the viewing area, some real basic info, but really nothing about the lights other than these lights have been occurring since,
1883?
1883, and that's it. Doesn't say what they are. It doesn't lend any sort of speculation as to the cause.
1885? See, that's the other thing.
It's like 1880s. Nobody really knows 100% for sure, but we're talking like 1880s. But the viewing area doesn't tell you what to expect. It doesn't set any expectations at all. It basically says this is it. Now there are people out there that say it's caused by like a piezoelectric effect from pressure and all that sort of thing, and nobody's discounted it. And to be honest, it still really can't be proven.
And the explanations provided by Wikipedia include atmospheric phenomenon. Skeptic Brian Dunning notes the designated view park for the area is on the south side of U.S. Route 90, 9 miles east of Marfa.
Yeah.
near the site of Marfa Army Airfield. However, I believe that airfield was only in use between 1942 and 1947.
Yeah, and see, they were seeing the lights from before then. They were seeing the lights before there was a railway. They were seeing the lights before there was a base. They were seeing the lights before there was a highway.
And they've seen them afterward,
right.
Now, there are explanations of car lights provided by the Society of Physics students at the University of Texas. They are claiming that part of it may be U.S. Highway 67 lights. So car lights from U.S. Highway 67. But that would mean you'd only be seeing them from one direction and from one side.
Right. And when you see like 5 of these things doing weird things, and the distance that we've seen. Okay, so getting a little bit ahead. So we got there, started to set up. I just basically used the phone.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Camera's not going to work. It's kind of like the Brown Mountain Lights. You set up and you bring your camera equipment, you realize pretty quickly if you're going to see them that most of the stuff that you bring is not going to work.
Yeah.
Just it kind of is what it is.
It's at such a far distance, you kind of need to flatten out what you're looking at.
Yeah, because if you try to zoom in and do that, any movement that far away translates into giant movement in the camera to where what you were centered and looking at through the lens or the viewfinder disappears.
Yeah. I did try to use my tripod, and I think I have a little bit of footage from the T7i, but not much.
Yeah.
It ended up, just like everybody else, we were trying to use our cell phones, including people there. So
yeah, and it was bright enough to be able to be seen, and there was a blinking red light. That blinking red light is supposed to be there. It designates something, and it didn't go out, so it's been there the whole time, so that's kind of a reference. But to see the other lights show up, and move around a little bit. So if you can see pronounced movement in these lights, and you're about, let's just say 10 miles away on average, that's a big movement on that end.
Yeah.
So when you see it dancing a little tiny little bit, that's quite a big distance. So anyway, so we're there and we see them, and there's people talking, and they're like, "Look, there's 2 now," and you can see them, and they flicker and they move around, and then they go out, and they show up again, and they go out, and different colors show up over here, and different. I seen one go whizzing across.
Yeah, allegedly the light colors are usually yellow, orange, but other hues including green, blue, and red are also seen.
Shockingly, like the Brown Mountain Lights that we've seen.
The Marfa Mystery Lights (MLS) usually fly above desert vegetation, but below background mesas, much like the Brown Mountain Lights.
Right.
It's above the tree line in some spots, but it's below the mountain range, because anything above the mountain range would get discounted as air traffic, For me, when I was looking at them, I saw mostly white. I did see one that was kind of yellowish. And the ones I paid attention to were the ones that were moving away from the blinking red light, which I think must have been like a traffic stop or something. I'm not sure what that.
I know. I think it's a tower.
Okay.
It's so far out. It looks like it's pretty low, but it's a freaking tower.
Yeah.
To keep like planes and junk from running into it.
And then there's like some that were like dead set in the middle of the mountain range in front of us. Yeah. Those ones, they were very far away, and that's why I was kind of.
Well, what I noticed about the lights when they popped up was same thing that I've seen with the Brown Mountain Lights. One light will show up and start to light and basically brighten in intensity, and then stay lit. And then the others would show up.
Yeah.
And then that light would fade down and lose intensity, and then the other lights would go out. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing I've seen at the Brown Mountain Lights multiple times. I'm like, so what? And that's why I'm like, wow, this is like the Brown Mountain Lights. So anyway, we watched these lights show up. We listened to the people talk. We didn't say anything at all. And we actually put a video up. We have a video up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. It's like 10 minutes long. There's no editing. It's basically just the clips. And unfortunately, it's very far away. So if you want to look at it, you're going to have to try to blow it up yourself, because my idea was I'm just going to put it up there. You can think what you want.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the experience that you have when it comes to this sort of thing, it's your experience. It doesn't matter what anybody else says or what they think they can prove or disprove using science. Just because you can explain something doesn't mean that's actually what it is or what happened.
Yeah.
Right. So we watched them for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I think our total time there was probably about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours total.
Yeah.
And that was enough.
Yeah, we did spend a little bit of time trying to get the van in position, but we just couldn't, because of the slope of the land and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just wasn't going to work out, And even if we should have just stayed where we were originally. But whatever. It happens. Never been there before.
But it was such a nice experience, even though it was like windy at one point. That kind of
it was crazy windy the whole time.
Yeah, which allegedly, for some ghost lights, that's actually a good thing, So yeah, but it was. I got cold. I got grumpy because I was cold.
I was fine. I put a coat on.
Yeah,
a jacket.
But it was.
But no, I mean it was okay. It was an experience, and I asked you what you thought, and you were like, "I think it's something."
Yeah, because the red flag for me is how far away we were. I can't get over that part because I don't know why you can't get closer and observe them. I mean, other than private property or, land that you're not allowed to get on. Why is that the only spot? Why isn't there an additional Marfa Lights viewing spot?
Well, maybe there is.
Okay. I would
but
like to...
that one just said Marfa Lights viewing area on the Google, and it made sense to go to it. I mean, sure that if you lived in between here or there, you could probably see them.
But then, if you search, Brown Mountain Lights, you see the Brown Mountain overlook, and even our experience watching those, they seem closer. And then when we go to Wiseman's View, we saw ghost lights in that area much closer.
Yeah, but see, here's the way I look at it. If we were on the East Coast in the same area, right, trying to see those particular lights...
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to see them at all.
True.
Because that's the thing about desert. And it's also the thing about being in the middle of the ocean. You can see a long ways.
Yeah. But the fact that you couldn't get closer kind of bugged me. I mean, and you talk to locals here about the Brown Mountain Lights, and they've had the up-close experience.
Well, sure.
I can't find any up-close experiences for the Marfa Lights. If you have one, reach out to us, contact@creepgeeks.com, because I'd love to have someone talk about an up-close experience with these lights.
I don't think... I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it matters. Because if these lights are appearing above a ridge or below, if it's a freaking mountain, I mean, where are you going to, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. You got to get back a little bit. But, I mean, the expectation I had was you see them, what are they? What do you think they are?
Now,
and that was it. I didn't,
Now, observing them, though, for me was different than the Brown Mountain Lights.
Well, it was nice. It wasn't just some random pull-off spot with 5 or 6 crusty picnic tables pushed to the edge, where a ghost may or may not hang out.
No, like what I'm talking about, even in your show notes, you've put consistent, With the Brown Mountain Lights, definitely it's hit or miss, and when you do see them, their movement seems... or like a
more organic, alive,
alive. Yeah, I want to say alive, not organic, because gases could be organic. But the movement of the Brown Mountain Lights resembles a living organism to me, in some instances. The Marfa Lights, while deliberate, they seem to just, I don't know, they didn't seem alive.
Well, this is kind of my thought behind that, because with the Brown Mountain Lights, it seems like a mixture of natural occurring phenomena and something that has some sort of semi-intelligent thought behind it, whether it's alive or not or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's like a mix. But with the Marfa Lights, it didn't really appear too much to be anything other than something that's happening. In other words, I didn't get the idea that the Marfa Lights were spooky, crazy, paranormal, or alive. It's just a natural occurring phenomenon. It occurs probably from, I didn't. It's not the same. I didn't think it was a mix. I thought it was more of just a random sort of occurrence that occurs on a semi-regular schedule, versus Brown Mountain Lights could be a mix of stuff that sort of happens as a byproduct of pressure or light or whatever, the piezoelectric effect, and a mixture of something that's alive.
So, yeah, okay. So Brown Mountain Lights, alive-ish, living movement type thing.
Yeah.
For me, especially the 2 that I spotted towards the middle of the mountains, I kind of think the word I'm looking for is maybe they're the same thing as an apparition or a specter.
Well, if you're thinking semi-intelligent haunt versus just a residual haunt.
Yeah, that's actually the logic I'm going along with, Yeah,
I mean, we're not saying that they're haunted or anything, but I get the
maybe
comparison.
They're haunting the mountain.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But also, you can remember, though, you are so far away.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you're not going to, it'd be like, oh, man, look, there is a scary monster. It is 10 to 15 miles away. You're not going to get weirded out until you get closer to it.
Or...
Unless it's, Godzilla or something, then you got to roll out.
We're both coastal people. We kind of grew up along the coast. We've heard lighthouse stories where, boats are out to sea and they see a phantom ghost light or phantom lighthouse light. That's kind of reminiscent of how I felt.
Yeah, kind of.
But they were longer than like a flashing, the turn of a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, okay, so having been out in the middle of the ocean and spent some time out there, you do see random lights and stuff like that, and you do see biologics and things that have that nice little phosphorescent glow. And, I mean, we've seen weird stuff out in the middle of the ocean out, doing our thing, and it's like, you try to make sure you don't run into it.
Yeah.
And, you're doing your navigation thing, and it's like, there it is, now it's gone. Like, what was it? I have no idea, but we don't have to worry about it because it ain't there anymore. But, yeah, I mean, I get it, but... I mean, overall, going to see the lights, if you're anywhere close to Marfa, Texas, I think it's worth going to.
Yeah.
But if it's not your thing or you're not impressed by the Marfa lights, you need to check out the art installation and be aware that you're surrounded by art. Some of it may appear to be junk, kind of dingy, but it's not, right? And as we were leaving, we did do the one thing you really wanted to do, kind of, and that was go to the Prada house.
Yes. So, God, now I got to pull that up and talk about it.
Well, the Prada house is there were some shops that were made, and these were in some movies. There was a tiny Gucci house, like a Gucci store, really small, miniaturized. Yeah, there was.
They weren't used in movies.
That's the only way I've ever seen them was like in a movie.
They've been used. They were there. They were put there. And then after the fact, some people have used them in movies.
That's what I said. I didn't say they were made for movies. I said they were in movies.
So they are permanent sculptural art installation by artists Elm Green and Dragset, located 1.4 miles northwest of Valentine, Texas. But for some reason, they're called Prada Marfa,
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen photos of Prada Marfa for like years, and it's always had that embodiment of being way out in the middle of nowhere, but you can't escape certain parts of civilization.
Well, it's surrealistic as the
Yeah.
entire thing. And I'm trying to think of the movie. I've seen them in movies where they've been there, and they weren't created for a movie, but I've seen them in movies, and one of them was where this guy lived in an environment that was surrealistic like that. And I can't think. It's not a Wes. Oh, golly, we're bad at Wes Anderson movie, but it's something like that. But anyway, they've been in movies. But so the Prada one is the most, I think, famous.
Yeah. Mad About the Toy. Destination Marfa was a sci-fi film where they're in the background. Now,
I think this movie had Robin Williams in it.
I don't know.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, just you've probably, if you've seen any of the movies that we don't know what we're talking about, you've probably seen these.
But I've seen these for a very long time, and I've always wanted to see them because it's just so absurd that way out in the middle of nowhere, there's going to be a Prada. And there's actually Prada shoes in there. It's like handbags, and like there were some shoes there. But unfortunately, the place has been vandalized a couple of times, including spray paint on it and all this other stuff. At one point, they built fencing around it, which has turned into a beautiful Lovelock memorial. Yeah. So around Prada Marfa, there's a little bit of fencing, just, stereotypical metal fencing. And people have put memorial locks and Lovelocks, and they've also put little ornaments on the fence, and it's beautiful.
Little mementos. Yeah. I think the fences actually was there to separate the installation from some guy's farming property.
Yeah.
That's really what it boiled down to. But.
We saw our first Texas scorpion out there, too.
Well, Pepper found that.
Yeah.
And she decided she was smelling at it pretty hard. And I didn't, because I had Pepper with the leash, and she was really intent and had her nose right on this thing. And as I looked, it was a black scorpion. And by reflex, I just jerked her like 5 feet in the air.
You're not jerk her 5 feet.
And caught her, like, oh my God, there's a scorpion over here.
And it was dead.
Yeah, but I didn't know it was dead, and I didn't want to go, oh yeah, it's a dead one. But
yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. And there's an entrepreneur type person. They had a little tent, a little pop up, set up where you could buy a lock for the love lock. Mm-hmm. I mean, for the love lock fence thing, and a bottle of delicious cold water.
Yes, and they had something else there. It was like
something to eat.
It was like watermelon juice or something. Like it was like weird.
Yeah.
I was like,
it was something kind of upscale.
Yeah,
it wasn't cucumber juice. It was like watermelon and something. So you get this, delightful drink if you wanted. But say, hey, we have a camper van and we travel and we do this sort of thing and we try to record these things and go places and see the weird stuff. So we have a full on refrigerator. So we're like, thank you, but no thanks. Yeah. But that was worth seeing. And there's a couple installations there. We've actually put some pictures up on Instagram and things like that for you to kind of check it out.
Yeah.
And so Marfa for me was a big plus. And then we left, Marfa and started heading towards...
we did do one thing at Marfa. We went to, because I want to mention it because I just...
Talking about Dollar General?
No, I'm talking about Moonlight Gems. And we met,
yeah,
we met the owner. And we picked up a couple of really amazing rocks because I had no idea that Marfa, Texas was so close to something that rock hounds really love, and that was the Woodward Ranch. The Woodward Ranch had some very, very, very rare types of agates, fire agates, and a couple of other types of gemstones. It was sold off. The owner passed away, and then it was sold off, and those people, I guess, aren't interested in continuing it. So all the fire agates from the United States that exist, that's pretty much it, unless we find a new, better supply of fire agates. So
I'll put that on my list.
Yeah, so Moonlight Gems, though, has an extensive array of Woodward Ranch agates, fire agates. They have a lot of rocks. I didn't realize Texas would be such a good place for, rock nerds.
It's where dinosaurs and oil comes from.
Yeah, that's true. And it didn't click until I was in that shop, and I'm like, wow. And I'm like, finally.
They actually have a park called Dinosaur Park.
I know.
But yeah, I mean.
So, but yeah, if you're into that sort of stuff, it's a great place.
There you go. If you're a rock nerd.
Which I am.
Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of stuff there. It was worth going to. I enjoyed myself pretty good. I think you did too, because you got some rock nerd stuff.
Yeah.
And were we able to bring our dog in? I don't know if it was dog friendly or no, we didn't, but they had a dog. Nice little fat, whatever it was, terrier, dachshund.
It was a dachshund.
Yeah, a little fat dachshund, a little sausage dog. It was pretty nice. It was a good time. We enjoyed it. Art installations everywhere. So if you're cruising through there, now I will say one thing: if you're going through there and you have a camper van, I would probably just stay at the viewing lights area. I don't think they even care.
Yeah,
because I see not one cop the entire time that we were there. It's unusual.
Oh,
so
there was something there that I wanted to talk about real quick, if I can find it on my phone. Because we drove past it, and we were like, what is that? At some point when we were driving into Marfa, I kept seeing something in the sky. I kept seeing a large white object in the sky. And then I wouldn't see it. And it was because we were turning on roads, and we were facing different directions. But eventually, we found that there's like a, outside of Valentine, kind of, there's like some sort of aeronautics place. Like radio.
It was a weather balloon.
Yeah, it was a weather balloon, basically. So
it's a tethered weather balloon, and what it actually does is it gives accurate and up to the minute weather for the ranchers and the cattle people that are out there, in addition to providing weather and weather related information to the local and surrounding areas.
Yeah.
So rather than build a giant structure like Doppler radar, they use this dirigible. And the dirigible records, has weather instruments on it, and it actually, since it's tethered, it sends the information back down through the tether into wherever, and it gets broadcast, whatever. So you can get up to the second weather off this dirigible thing. And we kept seeing it. It's like, what is that?
Oh, wait, there it is. Tethered Aerostat Radar System.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. So if you're in Marfa or Valentine and you see a large white object in the sky, double check to make sure it's not a giant weather balloon. Yeah. It's not a UFO. It might just be something else.
Very nice. Okay, so we're going to move back into the podcast, talk about something completely different. And this is something that probably It's unpopular opinions. And, unpopular paranormal opinion.
Okay.
So with the unpopular paranormal opinion, I think that we should probably do basically a Fortean term.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the Fortean term is, I can't find it. Where did it go? It's in there somewhere. Basically, it's Owlman.
Oh. Okay.
Where is it?
I don't have it.
What?
Oh, there it is, all the way up at the top next to what we're having for dinner.
Oh, man, I totally forgot. Okay, so if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that in the past we would do the podcast and record the podcast on the weekend. And after the podcast, we'd have a nice dinner, because why not? You sit down, you have a nice home-cooked meal. It's a way to sort of end the week before you move into the next week. It's just kind of like a thing. Like a lot of people used to have Sunday dinner all the time.
We have podcast dinner.
Yeah, we do something to where we can have a nice little podcast dinner. So after we get done sitting there and talking to you fine people, we go have a fine meal.
Yeah.
Well, this particular fine meal that we're going to have at the conclusion of this podcast, which has been gently cooking for about 8.5 hours, is a 15-bean soup with summer sausage and home-baked bread.
Yeah.
So what we did is we decided to take this 15-bean soup, and it's basically a bag of Hirsch dried beans.
Ham beans.
They call them ham. They don't say it like that, but
yeah, they do.
No, they don't. So it's called ham beans, and it has a little flavor packet in there. And, these are the kind of things that you soak all night long, right? And then you put like 8 cups of water, and you put these beans in there, and you cook them. And you can boil them on the stove for like an hour and a half and do all that. Or you can put them in a crock pot and gently let them cook for like 10 hours, man. I didn't realize it was going to take that long. But so anyway, when we get done with our podcast, that's what we're going to have for dinner. We're going to have a delicious 15-bean soup with some summer sausage and some home-baked bread.
Yeah.
And the home-baked bread that's on Omi, because she makes the home-baked bread.
Gosh,
so
we got to go get more bread baking stuff.
I have diabetes. We probably don't need more home-baked bread.
We probably don't.
That's probably what gave me diabetes in the first place, is you on your bread baking kick. And, I have no control when it comes to home and oven-baked
bread.
Fresh bread. I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put some butter on it or not. It doesn't matter. I'm going to eat it. Because it's good, man. We've all done that. And, hey, if you like fresh baked bread, you should let us know in our comments somewhere. You can even call us on our phone number. We have a phone number that you can call and share information and stuff like that. And if you enjoy home baked bread,
tell us at 575-208-4025.
Yeah, and if you have a good recipe for, cheddar or jalapeno bread, and you want to copy and paste it off the internet and send it to us, that'd be great.
Contact at CreepGeeks.com.
Yeah. So our Fortean term of the day is going to be Owlman, and you can find this definition off of Wikipedia's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the story originated a long time ago when somebody claimed to investigate a report of 2 young girls on a holiday. They saw a large winged creature, right, hovering above the tower at St. Monan.
So I honestly think they're trying
to
get this to all rhyme. Owlman of Monan.
Yeah. At St. Stephen's Church, and this was in 1976. And according to the story, the girls identified as, anyway, their names, June and Vicky, were so frightened by the sight of a large feathered bird man that their father, Don, immediately cut short their family holiday after basically hearing their tale, and they took off.
Yeah.
And so, they dubbed this creature the Owlman.
Okay. So
he looked like a giant owl.
Yeah, so it was a feathered bird man as far as the description goes.
Right, flying humanoid. Because we actually talked about Owlman in one of our episodes, podcast episodes, because we've got over 200 of them, where we actually talked about flying winged humanoids.
Now, another report, I guess it looks like a big owl with pointed ears as big as a man with glowing eyes and black pincer-like claws.
Yep, 1978, 79, 89, and 1995, there have been...
Owled.
See, you wrecked me. I was going to say Owlman sightings,
Loud owl-like sounds could be heard at night in the Mullion churchyard during the year 2000.
That's even more.
Yeah. So there's some explanations. Certain authors recognize that church towers are common nesting places for barn owls, which were likely the source of the sightings.
Yeah, because people wouldn't notice a difference between maybe a 14-inch, to 20-inch barn owl versus a 6-foot barn owl. Hey, nobody's going to know the difference between two.
And I think it's funny because like a week or two ago, I was walking along downtown Marion, and one of the churches had this really large vulture flying around its steeple, and I couldn't get a good, clear enough picture of it. But just if you only have the background of the sky, relatively clear sky that's getting dark, and the vulture, it looked huge. It looked like the size of the cross at the top of the steeple. Now I know it's...
Okay, well, but does that look like a giant? Would that be as big as a person flying around?
I mean, it looked huge. I'm not saying I had an Owlman experience. I'm saying just with the backdrop and the setting, it looked bigger than it probably was.
Okay.
So,
but again, this goes back to the point where I think that a lot of people think that people in the past are stupid.
Yeah.
And they're not as smart. And so they instantly discount what people say is because they're not intelligent. Yeah. And I think that's a mistake. I think people are just as smart then as they are now. It's just the environment that you're in. But anyway, that's me. But the Owlman was basically in a play, right? And in 2012 was a play called Horse Piss for Blood, which features the Owlman as a key plot point. So if you're looking for a play to look at or read or whatever,
where is it?
That's in popular culture in a listing on the Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's also the Owlman Feeds at Midnight is in an episode of season 1 of the children's TV show The Secret Saturdays.
And the 2013...
Wait, but the plot of that episode involves a town terrorized by an Owlman.
Oh. So, in 2013, the Scottish independent horror film Lord of Tears, the Owlman represents the Semitic god Moloch. So now I got a film I want to watch. So.
Well, if you're going to do that, who else? Well, let's not even get into Moloch because that's a thing we don't want to talk about.
Oh.
Right now, because we've been doing the podcast for 52 minutes and we're getting to the point where we need to wrap it up.
Fine.
No, it's not. We have a delicious 15-bean soup with summer sausage and bread that you haven't made yet.
So what is your unpopular opinion?
Okay, so I have a bunch of them, but the unpopular opinion that I was sitting here thinking about one night and started writing them down on the phone, as fast as my two thumbs would allow. Okay, number 1, Mothman isn't moth.
Yeah.
Owl is more likely.
True.
Because Owlman makes more sense in the descriptions that we've read and we've seen, and we've been, to see the Mothman stuff, and we've done all that, and like a giant bird. And really, there's no real sort of moth depiction that makes sense based off of, the descriptions and stuff. There's one or two illustrations that people made where if you look at it, if you squint sideways, it looks like a moth, but if you just kind of stare at it full on, it looks like a freaking owl to me.
It's owl-shaped. Like
right. Now,
owl
the statue
silhouette
that you see at Mothman and Point Pleasant doesn't look anything like... Here's a funny thing about the statue. To me, the statue doesn't look like the depictions that we've seen of Mothman. It looks more like my other part of the unpopular opinion, is that some of the sightings that we've read about and that we know to be part of the Mothman lore could be military exercises that were done in that particular time frame, because the military base is actually relatively close by in the 60s when they were doing high altitude parachute jumps.
True. So
if you're doing a high altitude parachute jump, which nobody did back then, because these were the same time the astronauts were training, to go into space and have to worry about maybe possibly bailing out at high altitude type stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, there's no oxygen where you have to bring your own oxygen and all this crazy stuff, right? Which is real commonplace now. You see like all these TV shows where they just fly up to almost into space and jump out. And they're like, oh, yeah. But what it had to come from somewhere. So if you look at the history of the past and being trained and stuff like that, that would be something you definitely want to keep secret. Okay. And remember, the Cold War was going on. So if they were doing these high altitude tests and things like that for secret black op missions, and you're wearing a giant helmet and you have your pack and everything else and possibly a flying wingsuit, which is allegedly sort of created around that time, and you've got your night vision goggles on or your low visibility goggles on with the red lights so it doesn't destroy your night vision because you're jumping out of a plane, you might look like a giant moth or an owl or something.
And see, that's where I'm still hung up
So the Mothman
on.
statue kind of reminds me of like if you were wearing a suit,
Yeah.
you know, in a helmet with your red eyes.
Hmm.
I don't know. So it's possibly military. So anyway, that's just my first unpopular opinion. It's not a moth. I think it's more, if it is something, it's probably more likely to be an owl, which makes sense because there was a giant bird, the crane, you know, and the possibility. One report said it, you know, you just seen a giant owl. And there are some big owls in that area.
So there's the explanation right there.
What?
Okay. So the reason for the name is due to the popularity of the Batman TV series at the time. The fictional superhero Batman and his rogue gallery were prominently featured in the public eye. While the villain Killer Moth did not appear in the show, the comic book influence of both him and Batman is believed by some to have influenced the coinage of the name Mothman in local newspapers.
Just because you can explain it doesn't mean that's what it is.
I know. It just seems like
let's do this far-reaching, I like Batman.
Yeah.
And Killer Moth would never have popped into my head, especially when you look at all the newspaper clippings when you're in a museum and things like that, where effectively it shows a giant bird, or the idea that it's a bird, and a lot of the depictions that were done don't look like a moth to me. I mean, so that's my unpopular opinion. Now, moths are cute.
That's like open up our local news and they started using the word yeet in the headlines. You know, it's such a reach, you know?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, because right. I still don't see it. I mean, that's the explanation according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, I think it just became popularized and that's, but I do like the idea that there was a lot of military exercises occurring.
So do we rename history?
No, we just leave it alone. Okay. We just keep moving. These are unpopular opinions. We don't have to do anything about it. These are like shower thoughts. We're not doing anything with them, right?
Yeah.
So here's number 2. Men in Black exist. Now here's the thing. Military, right, were aware of the Men in Black and they've copied the Men in Black in order to further discredit or discount sightings, experiences, or whatever. In other words, you've got Men in Black and all of a sudden you've got the military version, but I think the military version was basically copying the Men in Black sightings and stuff to further discount or discredit or to be able to control whatever you've seen. Because at the time, you got to remember, you had a lot of weird stuff going on. Still the Cold War is happening. A lot of stealth technology is being tested, all that sort of thing. So the military, seeing a good thing, copied Men in Black and jumped into it. And I think that's also part of Project Blue Book, where I think Project Blue Book was not there just to see what these sightings are. It was really just to see how much people really knew or what they actually seen. Because you can remember we had bombers and things like that with the B-52s. We have all this technology and stuff, and we also we think about the SR-71 Blackbird.
That makes me think of there was a Whitley Strieber book called Majestic, and there was some introductions of some Men in Black type characters in it, and it makes me think. Guess what you're going with the military and the disinformation right there, but that the original Men in Black incidences were, in fact, genuine encounters, like actual alien encounters. And then,
or something.
Yeah, they were some sort of high strangeness encounter, and then the military copied that so that they could execute this, like you were saying, the disinformation and the discrediting.
Yeah, that's just kind of
there was some very now I got to read that book over.
Yep.
Because it went into like hybrids.
We've talked about this before where, in the military during that particular time, I don't think they really do it anymore, but you could be issued a black suit. So if part of your tasking in the military, and we're talking about, I think from the 70s earlier into the 40s and things like that, if you had a job where you were supposed to be public facing and they didn't want you to wear a uniform, you could be issued a black suit. Black suit, white shirt, skinny black tie, because that was the style, and you'd wear your black shoes as part of your military uniform. The Navy had where they'd issue the navy blue suit, depending on what rate you were, or where you had to. Yeah. And so, if you're in a position where you need to go out and do things like that, and you're doing it in service to the military is not going to let you wear just your regular old street clothes. That's not part of your uniform. So if you're doing something if you're doing something while you're on duty or doing your job while you're in the military, in other words, you're at work, you're not home on leave or, not working, and you had to go out and go talk to people, and they didn't want you to wear your military uniform because they didn't want you to be identified as being military, you could wear your black suit, which was issued by the government. And, uniform of the day, all military people when they're outside and not covered, you wear a hat.
Yeah.
And most men in black all wore hats because that's your uniform of the day. And the military being the way the military is, they would control your dress because, hey, it's a uniform. Everybody needs to look the same way, one form. So the black shirt, which is already issued, the white shirt, which is already issued to you, a black jacket, black pants, black tie, along with your black shoes and black socks. Even down to where if you need to wear sunglasses and their prescription, whatever, they could be, all that could be issued by the military. It's in the supply system.
Okay.
So anyway, that's why I kind of think that's an unpopular thought. People might think otherwise, but it would make sense. Now, here's the one that's probably going to make a lot of people angry. 90% of the orbs that you see are not spirits. They're not ghosts. They're not your grandma. It's dust. It's dust. It's moisture. It's vapor in the air, a lot of that stuff. Now, the ones that you see that fly and do some crazy stuff, that may be a little bit different, but I don't think that everything that you see that looks like it may be an orb is actually an orb.
And
a spiritual orb.
And it bothers me that that is the first set of evidence people present these days, lately, when talking about a place that may be haunted or may have some strange energy, is they go straight to the orbs.
Right.
Because they have video. Because we all have been stressing photographic and video evidence is important when you have a paranormal encounter. However, orbs are not a majority, 90% of the time, it is not proof that there is something paranormal going on. It is proof that even when you think there's no wind, there's wind. No matter how clean your house is, it's not. You're going to have dust, and if you've got carpet, and that carpet is kind of old, go cruising across your floor, like scooting your feet on your carpet, and then turn the lights off, turn a flashlight on, and see all those carpet fibers that have been broken off by you scuffing your feet across the carpet. Yeah. And see all that floating in the air. I mean, hey. And it's also proof that despite having cameras that have great resolution, they may not have great frame rate. So, that's part of it, yeah. I mean, there's some cameras that, depending on your focal length and your aperture and all that sort of thing, when you take a picture and you do flash, you can see orbs, millions of orbs in the air. What's the relative humidity? How dry is it? What's flying around? Is it a bug? And they say, well, hey, if you've seen dust, it wouldn't be see-through. You can focus your camera and see through a chain link fence and make that fence completely disappear. It's a photography trick that you practice in photography classes. Yeah. And then, I saw something this week that kind of made me upset. You're just shifting your depth of field, Yeah, and I saw something this week that kind of really, really bothered me. And it was somebody who had game trail or game camera. Yeah, trail camera stuff. And they were stressing that no way at this time of year in December are those orbs bugs. There's no way. Bugs stop moving around at X temperature. And I'm like, okay, I mean, just the other day, it was like almost 80 degrees. Yeah. It doesn't work. And depends on where you are, of course. This was and one of the photos I should have showed you. It was so, we've seen that photo. We've seen photos like this before because we both have experience with cameras. And it was the stereotypical, this is a moth. Yeah. You could tell it was a long exposure of a moth flying. And this guy's like, there's no way this could be a bug. Yeah. And when people say that sort of thing, especially when it comes to rods and stuff like that, it's like, have you ever seen the video footage of a helicopter flying, but the rotors aren't turning? Oh, they're turning. It's just the frame rate in your camera matches basically the rotation of the helicopter blade, so it makes it look like it's standing still. Yeah. Now, this unpopular paranormal opinion, we have just said 90% of the orbs you see are not spirits, ghosts, etc. Yeah. That means we're not discounting everybody right now. That means there's 10% out there that I might not have an explanation for. Yeah. I mean, if you see something and it gives you the heebie-jeebies, there may be something to it. But, again, it's sort of like, and I've said this many times, just because it can be explained with science or whatever, doesn't mean that's not actually what it is or what occurred. Yeah.
But when you hand me a picture and say, see this orb? That's my grandma. I'm going to look for other things. And when it doesn't look like that's your grandma, or there's other things that tell me that it may be something different, until I see your grandma floating around as an orb, I'm probably going to say different.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always appreciate seeing them. But, sometimes this happens all the time, especially not just orbs, though. Like when you see like the picture of Bigfoot in the woods, and that it's basically an old picture that's already been
recycled.
Yes, it happens all the time, and it happens with a lot of people that are new to the thing. And you say, "Oh, here it comes. Here's that same picture we've seen 100 times or whatever." But
yeah,
I don't mean like us, just we. I mean like in general. If you've into the paranormal and you've done some research, you've seen the same thing recycled, rehashed many, many times.
And going along with that line, along these lines. Like, I posted some video and audio the other day because I couldn't identify the sounds in it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I know everything. I'm not saying I'm a wilderness expert.
Well, okay, so you should probably explain a little bit about the sound, because it's not. We got a lot of replies, because I know what you're talking about. We got a lot of replies that say, "Oh, that's just coyotes."
And see, that's the thing. If you read the caption,
no, can't do that.
Let me go ahead and back up. Okay. So for the past year or so, we have had a coyote problem in this area. Unfortunately, the coyotes took one of our neighbor's dogs. They also got some chickens. They got all of one of our neighbor's ducks, and they got them within like 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's been an ongoing thing to the point where one of our neighbors, actually two of our neighbors, two different ones on opposite sides, they've had coyote hunters out. It hasn't helped the problem. We have coyotes. The pack is getting larger. The pack was moving through this week, and I heard them howling. But before I heard them howl, and as soon as the video starts, you hear a different noise. And I can't identify that noise. And then right towards the end of the video, I want to say within the last few seconds of the video, there's an additional noise different from the one at the beginning. And those are the noises I wanted people to tune into.
Yeah.
Now,
it's really hard, though.
Yeah.
Because the problem that you have is that the way you're recording things in general, and if you use your phone, which is what you had, which is good, it's hard to separate noises that you hear in the background.
Yeah. Now, I'd have to be out there with like one of those fancy like microphone things. What do you call that? Oh, the microphone.
Parabolic microphone?
Parabolic microphone.
But then even then, the only thing you're doing is you're sampling a small section that's been received to the parabolic dish, and it doesn't necessarily separate the background noise from the sound that you're actually hearing.
But I'm sharing that video and that audio because I want people's input. I'm not making any claims.
We are full aware
Yeah.
of what coyotes sound like, having lived in New Mexico, where there's packs of coyotes that run down the street. And if you're saying that's not true in New Mexico, it completely is. We lived.
Go live in Bernalillo County.
Go to Bernalillo. Go to the dirt where they're using the arroyos as highways to travel from. And we understand and know what the sound of a coyote attacking a pack of or another animal and eating that. We are fully aware of what that sounds like.
Yeah.
But when we hear something that sounds different before the coyotes pick up.
And we're not telling you what it is because we don't want to influence your opinion.
Actually, we don't really care what your opinion is.
Yeah.
Because we could easily say, I think Bigfoot is controlling the coyotes because there is the theory that Bigfoot and coyotes cohabitate when they're doing their thing. And you can't really say, oh, that's just ridiculous. I mean, look at the dog you have sleeping on a banana yellow covered blanket chair. Right? And I mean, why would and that goes to something completely different. A lot of people that look at Sasquatch don't realize or don't think, and they say, why would Sasquatch even do that? If you think that Sasquatch is purely a stupid animal, then some of the things that can possibly happen with Sasquatch don't make sense. If you think of this thing as being maybe a couple steps under human, or what we know as a modern Homo sapien, that has a large intelligence and can use tools and do things.
Or even just a large primate that's extremely bright. Yeah,
because, I mean, people say, well, it doesn't make any sense. Have you ever seen the pictures of the gorillas at the zoo having little kitten pets?
Yeah. They have like little kitten sitting.
Or like the cheetahs that have like emotional support dogs because they're so lonely. So to say that animals can't cohabitate or use other animals for different purposes is silly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I do encourage everybody to listen to that video again. There's the two things I'll talk about. Yes, we know there's coyotes. We know what coyotes sound like. Also, I am a little disturbed because there's something that sounds like a wolf. Now,
what if it's Bigfoot making the sound of
now, here's the thing.
They are good for mimicry.
I've heard that sound before. We haven't had any wolf sightings in this area, so it is a little strange. But those are the two things in there. However, there are two other sounds I want you guys to tune into and let me know what you hear.
Yeah. Now, if you're listening and you've commented, we're not being combative or anything like that. We're just saying, yeah, we get it. And at the end of the day, what you hear is coyotes, but we're trying really hard to capture the unusual sounds that we hear before the coyotes start.
And it's so hard because, you'll just go out there, take Pepper to go potty, and all of a sudden you hear all this weird stuff out there.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. It's just a thing. But, yeah, we're, hey, if you have an idea what it is, let us know.
So, guys, I do want you to watch that Marfa Lights video Greg put up on YouTube. I'll be putting some additional stuff up both on TikTok and on Instagram, so stay tuned for that stuff in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and I think we're going to, when we come back again for the podcast, whether it's the end of this year or the beginning of next year, our new year, we'll probably have a couple more unpopular opinions.
Yeah.
So
check the show.
But now, with that being said, though, I don't want you to think that I'm just like a negative, skeptical person. I'm totally skeptical because I would be silly to not be skeptical to a certain degree.
We should ask people to share their unpopular paranormal opinions with us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No judgment.
Yeah. Mostly.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Because we haven't even touched the surface of, people have some crazy opinions, and ours are in there too. Who knows? Because at the end of the day, none of this stuff can be, here's the thing, none of this stuff can be proven. You can't be discounted or proven with certainty. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that things that aren't going to happen, I'll leave you with one more unpopular opinion. We're never going to have disclosure.
Yeah.
We're not.
We're not.
As much as people want it, and we're getting closer and closer. Are we, though?
A great example of that would be the JFK assassination and then that British movie we watched the other night about some bank job. The files were supposed to be released on those things in our time. And one of them...
2054, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's for the bank job thing, the British thing. But it's we're never going to get there. All the JFK files have not been... All of them have not been released, Yeah. So how are we going to get that way with something that would affect the entire planet?
Yeah, it would have to be completely out of our hands.
Maybe.
It would have to be out of our hands as far as the government. It'd have to be out of our hands as far as any organization. I think that UFOs and aliens would have to, like every movie you see, to remove all doubt, when you have a giant saucer sitting over Los Angeles or whatever, like Independence Day style, I think that would probably do it.
I've been reading a lot of books, and there was this one book that basically said, they had been visiting us for a while, and they tried to confront the governments of the world, and what it took was they had to land on top of this very well-known news station during Good Morning America, and that was the plot for part of the book. And
I hope somebody gives us an unpopular opinion of Antarctica.
Ooh, yeah.
There you go. So, all right, so anyway, there you go. These unpopular opinions are just that. They're random, they're unproven, they're just opinions.
Yeah. And you should share yours at contact@creepgeeks.com or hit us up on social media. Yeah. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. This was a little bit longer, but we hope you enjoyed everything we talked about. Again, please vote for us on the Paranormality's favorite podcast of the month. The link to that is in the show notes at the top of this episode. Everything we talk about, show notes, has links and details. Check those links out. You'll find our social media. You'll find our Patreon. Again, thanks to all our Patreon supporters. You guys have something special coming to you in the mail if you haven't already gotten it. Check us out. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We are everywhere. Just search CreepGeeks Podcast and you'll find us.
Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
Pretty much. So anyway, there you go. So happy holidays, everybody. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, just let us know. Hit us up on Facebook, like Omi was saying. Yeah. Anyway, we do appreciate you listening.
Join our group, y'all, on Facebook. We need it. We need more people to talk to.
We would like more people to talk to. It's that time of year, y'all. We're doing our pledge drive. It's not like that.
You've tuned in to CreepGeeks PBS.
That's right. So for the small donation of $1.295, you can buy a fat guy a cup of coffee, right? Yeah. Or a little skinny dog a dog bone. She doesn't even like dog bones.
I know.
Because they're too hard for her little teeth.
Everybody, if
She
you
likes
meet
duck
Pepper
jerky.
and you have duck jerky, she'll be your best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very nice. All right, so anyway, there you go. So we do appreciate listening. This was Season 6, Episode 232, Marfa Lights and Unpopular Paranormal Opinions. And vote for us.
Yeah.
So anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.